start the daily. Hey, great. We can start then. Yeah, Martin, do you want to go first?
Sure. So yesterday I was still working on creating a spec test for epoch processing. I'm done with that, so now I can move forward with the tickets. Yeah, I don't have much more than that.
All right, perfect. That sounds great. So epoch processing on your side, Paul, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So I'm continuing to finish the 3 PRs that are like related to each other. So I need to finish one to be able to trickle down to the others. But it's getting like closer and closer, which is pretty good. So I'm finishing the configuration, like adding the configs from the YAML. I had some problems with like a BLS file that like wasn't available, which was pretty surprising because I just like merged from main and there was like normally no problem, and I didn't touch anything related to the BLS, so there wasn't like a real reason. So so normally that should be alright. I hope at least because I haven't seen the error now, but maybe it will come back. I don't really know why it does it. After I just need to find out to yeah, just to finish this and then to integrate it, like merge it, integrate it in the next PR, so I can make like use the right calls to the config. That is, so we don't like hard code the config. So I can make the right calls to the config, and then in the next PR just use the function that is correctly built using the config. So it's like 1, 2, 3. So yeah, so it should be ready soon, and yeah, I'll update you as soon as it's finished.
Perfect. Let us know if you need any help, but it sounds like a great progress on the config side. Also, let us know if the BLS thing happens. Again, it shouldn't. It's a weird one.
And I'm having quite a few errors. I think potentially related to libp2p. So we're receiving, like because it's true that it's a little bit different. Like Elixir, because it's like an interactive language, you can like interact with the IES prompt. But usually, when you run a client, for example, Lighthouse, you don't run it in an interactive way. So you just have like all the logs, and you just read or follow the logs. But here we have like the IEX, and at the same time we have the logs. So like for example, if you try to write something in the IEX, like the logs start breaking what you're writing. So it's complicated. And also right now, what I wanted to say mainly is that I'm having a lot of like errors coming from like libp2p or BLS not able to do this, or SSD not able to have something. So or I could like I think I'm gonna send them maybe to Thomas or in the group, and then see how we can try to resolve them slowly.
I think we can safely just comment those. Right now, if there's an error, the Golang side just prints, and that's what breaks the EX command line. I think we can just comment it out. After all, we are moving to ports, so there's really no need to keep those prints around right now.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. It's maybe yeah, for sure. I think it's good. After I just don't know. Just a question quickly to Thomas. What is your vision in the end for the client? Will it be a client which is potentially super cool that we will be able to communicate with like interactively through IEX, or will we just run it directly as any other client as a binary, so non-interactively, and just run it as a package?
Both. Elixir has this very neat feature where you can bring up a process and then you can bring up a separate shell and connect to it, especially in production builds. I don't know if dev builds have that, but that's something that I want to explore. In all of my previous Elixir projects, we had this capability where you bring up a production application and that's always running. But even in a production environment, you can go and just start a shell and communicate with the processes as they are live. That's one of the very neat things about Elixir. So I plan on doing the same here. I think that we have two separate problems. On the one hand, we have that. I promise that at least my vision is to have both of those, like having the client running with all of its logs, but aside from that, having the capability to connect to it with a shell and just issue commands in Elixir to live processes. But on a separate problem is in a dev build, you should be able to run without being extremely disturbed by the messages. I think that that's, as Thomas Gruner said, the problem now is that there are not only too many messages, but they are also messages that don't have any logger level. Like in the future, if we have proper error handling, we will have a logger level for each one of the log messages. And if we have messages that are like verbose, we can just have them in debug level. And then when you're working locally, you can just raise the logger level to, for instance, info or something like that, and you will not be disturbed by these kind of things. So I think that those are two separate problems that need to be addressed in different ways. We like I in my vision, we do have this capability of having both of the like the running client and the EIX, which is something that we kind of can do right now. But even with that, we still need to, in development environments, we still need to be able to not be like full of logs everywhere that don't let us write. We should be able to control that better. So I fully endorse Tomas's idea of just commenting the errors in the Go side for now, because we'll not be solving those in the short term, and they are also non-blocking for the goal of this milestone. So having them commented at least saves us a bookmark on where they are. But you can probably fetch them very easily because you have the exact message, and you can just like Command Shift F those in Visual Studio Code and look for them, or whatever editor you're using. So we already did that for a couple of messages that were too verbose a couple of weeks ago. We can do that for the ones that are bugging you. But it will also be great if you can like copy paste some of those messages in the group so that we at least have knowledge of them. Does that sound okay? Thanks, Paul. What else? Tomas, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Well, since yesterday, I continue. I reviewed some PRs and also fixed a problem I found we had when running the node without checkpoint sync. It was a bug that I introduced with the integration. It's already fixed now. Martin just right before the daily, he approved and merged the PR. Now I'm working on migrating from NIFS to ports finally. And yeah, it's gonna be some. I think it's gonna take at least like 2 or 3 days to migrate most of it. There probably will be some bugs, but that should be fixable. That's all. I'll also add a roadmap we uploaded for the EPF to the main README of our repo, so people can see it just by going to the GitHub repo.
Awesome. So what I hear is that we already have checkpoint sync working. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I forgot. I thought I mentioned it in the last daily. Yeah, we already have checkpoint sync working. It's merged already to main, and I also added the instructions to run it in the README. You just run the command, listen the README, adding the URL of a trusted third party with information on the beacon state for the last finalist checkpoint. There's also a link to a list of public source that that has links for many third parties that make that information available, and you just add that URL to the command, and the node starts syncing from that finalized source until the head.
That is so cool. So yeah, great to know. That's one of the biggest things of the milestone. So I'm glad that we have that in place.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest, ideally, to be able to have more confidence in that would be nice if we had some type of, some check. I don't know if it's with the execution layer or something that we can check so that we start at the sync point, at the checkpoint, and then we can do one of the 100 or checks that are on the state transition, and make that check from the checkpoint sync until the head, and make sure that it is working, which means that at least maybe, I don't know, check that the parent is okay, so we can have confidence that the chain is actually does make sense or something. So that we are not just like getting like random blocks, and we are not validating anything at this point, right? But it would be good maybe if we could have like the most trivial check, so that we have that minimum confidence. I don't know what you guys think.
I think it's a great idea. I'm not sure of which is the most convenient way to check that. One of the possible things that could work would be the local testnet, but that's not a very popular one. I don't know if anyone else. I'm not sure if I understand your idea correctly. Like, what's the specific check that we should perform to see if everything's working all right?
Well, for example, if you start from the checkpoint sync and then you start getting all the blocks towards the head, you check the state transition on each one of those blocks, right? Which is a lot of checks. But right now we do 0 checks. So maybe at least we could like somehow check that, like when you start getting those blocks, that you have the parent stored or somewhere. I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this, but yeah, the thing is, I don't know how it will work when we start having checks, like where is the state transition going to be executed, that kind of stuff. Having something similar to what the on-block event is. Yeah, I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but it would be good to have something similar to what the actual flow is going to be with the on-block event or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think these validations come in when we have implemented the unblock and all the processes inside the unblock, because basically normally when you sync from checkpoint, the first thing is that you ask the latest beacon state to a node, and then you go and sync all the blocks. And the only problem that we have right now is that we have no way of validating them, as Martin is saying. But it's because of two things. The first reason is that we don't have the LMD ghost. We can choose like we cannot like append blocks and start creating like how do you call it, like chains. And the second thing is that we don't have like the processes to validate the functionality, like on block and all the processes like process block, process X, process Y. So I think that these validations will come in and will be added to the checkpoint sync the moment we add these internal functions. But for now, we don't have these internal functions. So do you want to, for now, just make like a placeholder verification where we could take this beacon state or potentially the next blocks that we receive and go and make a new payload v2, like request to the execution client and see if the data is valid? Or what is your vision? Because I think that while we don't have the internal core functionalities, like the internal core functions of all the processes and on block on X and Y, we cannot validate because you validate through those.
You can add the validations one by one. So
Yeah.
the way the state transition works is you have the old beacon state, you have a new block, and then you run the state transition. The beacon state has a lot of stuff, but we could start with a very simple beacon state that has all like garbage data, and the only valid one is the parent hash, for example, and we could run the state transition, and the only thing it does for now is validating that the block's parent is equal to the block hash and the beacon state. And that way we will have like a very trivial state transition, but we will have something. And if you for example, if you get a block but you don't have the parent, somehow it will fail and you will have to fetch that parent. Maybe it's not something that we want to do now, or maybe the next iteration, but at least that's how I see like the next stage that we want to build, having like the most trivial state transition.
I think that I get where this is coming from. I think that we're mixing a couple of things. So for instance, we don't need any kind of fork choice to have state transitions. Like for instance, if a new block arrives and we have a beacon state associated with it, we only need to have the parent in order to calculate the state transition. We don't need to perform fork choice. Fork choice is something that we only need to perform if we are requesting the head and we want the canonical chain to be correct. But in order to calculate the state transition, we don't need any kind of fork choice. We might need the fork choice store for some of the things, but maybe not even that. And also for having the parent for knowing if we have the parent, we can also check if that key is available in the, especially for blocks, right? Not for beacon states, but for blocks, we can check if the root is available as a key, and we already know if the parent is available in one of the blocks that we saved. That could be a good first step to validate that. And there's also in onBlock, there's also a validation that checks if the parent is present. So that's very aligned to what you were saying, Martin. In that kind of sense, we don't even need a beacon state for that. We can start implementing a state transition function if we want to, but I don't think it's fully necessary. I do think that that's the next step. Like next week on, we start with the milestone related to like October is about to begin, and we start the milestone related to attestations. And in attestations, we do need to build some stuff related to fork choice, because that's the idea, that we at least want to have a very basic version of the fork choice store. But I think that we're mixing about 2 or 3 different problems. For having a validation on the checkpoint sync, one of the things that we can do is just have some level of observability where we can see each of the slots, how many blocks we have for them. And then we can have that in, for instance, Grafana or something like that. Or for instance, but if we want to do the parent check, which is something that we need to implement anyway at some point, we can already do that because we have the keys for that are the block roots. So if we get a block, we know its parent, and we can check if the parent is present on the DB, at least for now. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but I think that both of those ideas are already like possible to implement without the need for either fork choice or even the fork choice store, which is something that we will build like next week on for sure.
Yeah, basically the difference would be like the difference between having a collection of blocks and having a chain. if you can verify that you have all the parents from the head to the checkpoint sync. That's I guess the summary.
So you were talking about a recursive check, not like a one-shot check, like checking that just the parent is available. You want to check that the whole chain from head to Genesis is available, right?
Not to Genesis, to checkpoint sync.
Sorry.
And there is some logic, I guess, in the clients that when you get some block from gossip, then what happens if you don't have the parent of this block, and then you make the call to get the parents, and so there seems to be some kind of logic there to be able to make sure that you have the whole chain. But yeah, maybe it's not for this milestone, maybe for the next one, but that would be a good next step.
Yeah, perfect. But I do agree. All of those methods are very useful for like checking if everything's working right. Let's start discussing those for next week. I think that I'm the only one missing for the update. Yesterday I was mostly working. Well, I worked on getting up to date with the APF reports. I did that. That took up a couple of hours because I was missing a bunch of them. After that, I worked on fixing the Nix file for the newer OTP and Elixir versions, which we had updated very recently. I manually checked that the application worked with Nix from scratch without any of the dependencies installed, and it seems it's working pretty well. So if anyone wants to use Nix instead of ASDF, that's already available now. And I think that I was talking to Martin yesterday, and he was saying that he found a way to use Nix in CI, which might be useful maybe in the future. After that, today I've been working on updating the docs. There's especially the architecture diagram and a couple of things that we have in the proposal are a bit outdated. So I will start uploading the new diagrams to GitHub as soon as possible, probably at some point today. And yeah, my idea was to start working on the fork choice. Well, not the fork choice, but the fork tree POC today. But the other tasks got the most of me, so I'll probably just do documentation today and start the fork choice POC on Monday. I don't know if we have any. That's it for me. I don't know if we have any final comments or questions. Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
I think that something that could potentially be interesting is start a boilerplate for CLI, considering that now we have the checkpoint sync URL that we can potentially pass, but we also have the chain config that we can potentially pass also as another parameter, because now we have the internal configs when I will have PR'd it. So I think it could potentially be start being like interesting to create the boilerplate for a CLI and start adding these few operations or these few commands that we could run. I don't know what you think, or if you want to keep that for later.
No, that's very interesting. I think that on Monday we will probably regroup after we, at some point on Monday or about these couple of days, we will finish with all of the things that we need for the checkpoint sync milestone, and then we can check what we need for the following one. If our bandwidth is okay, then yeah, working on the CLI sounds very interesting. We need to see if we all have, like, if we have enough bandwidth for that. But I do agree that's very interesting, and it could be, if it's a low-hanging fruit, if it's like, I don't know, a day or something like that, yeah, definitely. If it's something that will take like a week or so, we probably want to prioritize different things. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, definitely. I've been looking into it a little bit. There's a few packages, like hex packages that are available to like build CLIs, a little bit like Phoenix would be like a framework for building APIs. There's a few like small CLI frameworks or wrappers, or we could build it from scratch, but it doesn't look like an enormous amount of time. So I could potentially look into it and update you guys, but doesn't seem too big to implement.
Okay, cool. Yeah. After you finish with your current ones and you start tackling the other one, then yeah, let us know how it goes. Hit us with a proposal or like whatever your idea for the CLI is, and we can discuss it. But yeah, that sounds like a very interesting task. I agree. Sounds fun. Okay. Anything else? That's great then. Yeah, thank you all for joining. I hope you all have a great weekend and see you all on Monday.
Yeah. Oh, also, I'll be in Paris next week, so I won't come to the office. But
Yeah,
it was nice to have the whole team at the office yesterday.
of course. Yeah. Have fun in Paris, man.
Thank you.